What up, HyperChange? Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to do a preview of Tesla's Q4 2018 earnings. These are set to be announced this week on Wednesday after the closing bell, so mark your calendars. This is going to be a huge deal. Everyone in the financial world is going to be talking about it. Tesla's releasing all their financial data for the full year of 2018. This episode, we're going to go through a preview of all the numbers I'm expecting, got some unbelievable charts lined up, and then more of my analysis of what kind of I'm expecting on the conference call, what other product announcements I think are going to come out in the shareholder letter. So let's get right into it. The hard stuff is already done because we already know how many cars Tesla delivered in the quarter. This is something they announced, just a couple days after the quarter ends, about 3 weeks ago. They said they delivered 90,700 cars. This is a record and up about 8% from the previous high in Q3 2018, the bulk of those Model 3. So we know that. And then in a blog post to employees that Elon sent out announcing that 7% layoff, there was a really key tidbit in there where he also said the company was able to report a small GAAP profit in Q4, or it looks like they were able to, and it was slightly smaller than the one in Q3. So we pretty much already know what to expect. We know how many cars they sold, we know which types of cars they sold, and we know about how big the profit was. It was about 400 million in operating income in Q3, so somewhere between 0 and 400 million. This is what Tesla's quarterly financials look like heading into Q4. So as you can see, Q3 was that breakout quarter where the Model 3 hit scale, the company was profitable, everybody cheered, and now this is what I'm expecting for Q4 2018, 6.7 billion in revenue, 200 million in GAAP operating income. Biggest reason for this pricing decline is even though they are increasing deliveries by 8%, I do believe there was an even bigger decline in ASP mix. Because if you remember in Q3, Tesla put out a huge rush to deliver those premium performance dual motor versions of the Model 3 that could be selling as high as 70 grand a car. And then in Q4, they were selling more of the Lemur edition, or that new, mid-range Model 3 battery pack that started at 46 grand. So I think the average selling price, according to my model, went from about 60 grand in Q3 to about 50 or 52 grand in Q4 2018. And that's why even though they increased deliveries, they're actually decreasing revenue a little bit. And because they were selling a lower price car, even though they're getting more economies of scale, they're improving their manufacturing process, they're improving labor hours per car, I still think the margins are going to be lower because the price is so much lower. And that's part of the reason we have the lower profitability. So that's the number I'm looking for. Still a huge deal because as you can see, it would be the first time in Tesla's history they've ever reported two profits in a row that I can remember, and substantial profits in the hundreds of million range too. If we take a look at comparing this relative to other Q4s, you can see this is what we're looking at, growth of about 104% year over year. And once again, that huge swing, not only is revenue doubling, but we have an $800 million swing in profitability, which drives them into the green. So the biggest reason for Tesla's increasing profitability and their ability to stay in the green with the Model 3 is they've ramped the gross margin. This was the big if, okay, they have the Model 3 out, but can they do it profitably? And the answer is looking like yes. And so this is what my model has projected. As you can see, there was that huge dip, in late 2017 and early 2018 when they were ramping the Model 3 originally. And that this is the whole gross margin of the whole company, Model S, X, and Tesla Energy. But even so, the Model 3 dragged it all down to below 15%. Then we hit, about 22% last quarter, but once again, higher price premium cars. So I think it's still going to be above 20% this quarter, which is going to be a huge accomplishment. About 20.9% is what I'm assuming. In terms of operating expenses, this is what we're looking for Tesla. They did those layoffs in Q2 2018, so that's why there's that restructuring expense there. And so if you take out that restructuring expense, I'm assuming basically a record of about $1,200 in OPEX. And this is the leverage in Tesla's model, is that their operating expenses continue to grow way slower than their revenue. And now that, they're finally ramped production of the Model 3, all that incremental gross profit is going right to the bottom line because their OPEX is so relatively fixed. Moving to Tesla Energy, this is probably a part of the business that I really hope we get more clarity on the conference call, but it's sort of been forgotten. Waiting for the solar roof, waiting for the batteries to ramp, which is competing with Model 3s for supplies of the cells. So I think the priority has not been on the energy business. I'm expecting revenue of 350 million, and although that does look down from the previous quarters, it still is up from Q4 2017, and this is a seasonal business. So I think we're going to see seasonally lower revenue in Q4 2018. Annually, this is what the revenue is looking like for Tesla Energy. It's looking like it's it's going to post about 1.5 billion in sales for the overall year. If we go to HyperCharts, you can take a look at the actually energy storage deployed per quarter, and we're estimating about flat from Q3 relative to Q4. Not much clarity on this. Honestly, we'll just have to wait and see where it comes out, but we've seen a nice steady growth in Tesla's energy storage business. This is actually the batteries. If we take a look at energy generation deployed, this has been the weak part of Tesla's energy business, the solar installations. Ever since they bought Solar City in Q4, they've been ramping down this business, switching to a cash sale model from a lease model, getting ready to ramp the solar roof. So I'm still expecting weakness in the solar business in Q4 and in early 2019, as they still haven't really made many moves on the solar roof. This is what we got for the full year. We're looking at deliveries of 245,000 cars for Tesla, tremendous, over 100% growth, excellent continuation of the mission and core business here. And this is what it translates into financials as, or these are my estimates for the full year 2018, come down a little bit from when I made my last video on this, 20.9 billion in revenue, which is up 77% year over year. And then we have a loss of 600 million, which is a huge improvement from the $1.6 billion loss in 2017. And my opinion is they can get to profitability in 2019 overall. So this is what I'm expecting for the full years of deliveries: 300,000 Model 3s, 120,000 Model S and X. And you might be saying that's like a lot higher than the Model S and X that you've been expecting, and I'm going to give you more on that in a sec. But that translates to financials of about 29.8 billion in revenue for the full year of 2019, and about 4.4 billion in profit. So I do believe Tesla is going to be able to post a full year profit. And of course, this is a guess, totally up in the air based on what we're going to report. But this is what my model says on deliveries of about 420,000 cars, even very weak growth in the energy business. I think Tesla can be profitable for the full year. So this is a huge, huge deal. Now, moving to the other part of the financials, which is the free cash flow, because this is a story that I made an episode about, which is actually now my most viewed video ever on the channel with almost 100,000 views. So thank you guys. But showing the cash flow cadence of Tesla. And this is one of my favorite charts because it demystifies the financials so clearly. As you can see, this is Tesla's cash flow, not including the quarter they're about to report. It just looks like, okay, they're pretty much always losing money versus these random bursts of green. What's happening? If we overlay this trend, you can see that as they produce the vehicle and begin production, they have incredibly heavy losses of free cash flow. But as they scale production, the free cash flow starts growing rapidly and goes positive, and we've never seen that accentuated more with the Model 3. And what's different from the Model 3 is they're not going to ever go back in the red. The Model 3 is such a big product, it's going to keep them in the green. So my estimate is we're looking at about 300 million in positive free cash flow in Q4. There's a couple reasons why that's lower, but I think this could actually be a significant low ball. But the point being is, now look at this chart, is we're seeing the Model 3 make Tesla substantially profitable from a free cash flow perspective for the second quarter in a row. I mean, this is a huge deal. This is, to me, what signals, as a shareholder, this is what gets me excited to own Tesla as an asset. I mean, now this is something that is generating hundreds of millions in cash flow per quarter, not burning hundreds of millions of cash flow per quarter. Inherently, that de-risks the whole business model, and I think increases the valuation multiple substantially. And if we go to HyperCharts to take a look at the free cash flow chart as well, this goes into more depth because you can see that operating cash flow is one thing. That's the cash flow from the core business. Let me separate that out here, which you can see hit, a record of almost 1.4 billion in Q3 2018, and we're estimating at about 800 million in Q4 2018. And then you have capital expenditures, CAPEX, essentially, investments for future growth, buying those robots to build the cars. And so we're assuming about 500 million of CAPEX coming out of that 800 million operating cash flow, and that's how you get to free cash flow of about 300 million. And this is the same chart that I just showed you on the other slide. So that's how we get to the free cash flow number of 300 million. I personally think it could be a low ball because I think CAPEX here of 500 million could potentially be an overestimate, and I think we have assumed a significant decrease in operating cash flow because of the lower price Model 3s, and I think we may have overly done that. So anyway, this is a look at more in depth in the cash flow. That kind of wraps up the financials of the quarter. Now let's go into what I'm expecting Tesla could announce in terms of the actual business of the company. So the biggest thing on my mind right now is Model S and X pricing and battery changes. About a week or two ago, Tesla dropped the base level 75 kilowatt hour battery pack for the Model S and X. This raised the base price from like 80 grand to 95 grand for both of those cars. I mean, it's a huge difference. This is a huge gap in Tesla's product line. There's a lot of questions in the air about what's going to happen there. And then there was a CNBC article about the layoffs that were announced. And in that tidbit where they also talked about how the Model S and X may be limiting production of that at Fremont or removing a second shift. And then Tesla's official comment on that article was, we're basically going to announce more details about the Model S and X on the earnings call. So I think, and then there's that whole debate of the 2170 battery cells. Are those going to get integrated into the Model S and X? Could that increase the range of these cars? Could that get them ready for Supercharger V3? There's all of these theories. And so I think we're going to get a huge announcement and moment of clarity on the Model S and X. I think it's going to be an implementation of the 2170 battery cells. It's going to be an upgrade. It's going to be a refresh. It's going to be exciting. And that's why my model has Model S and X demand going from 100,000 units per year to 120,000 this year, because I think this refresh is going to generate new demand. And so that's the biggest sort of operational business news I'm looking for Tesla in Q4. The second big thing is timing of international Model 3 deliveries. So, Tesla now has sort of exhausted US demand. The tax credit ends. They've said they're focusing on China and Europe deliveries. We've got these boats going out, shipping the Model 3s. And I think this is going to sort of change the cash flow cadence of what we've seen, because the time from customer order to delivery is getting extended because they have to ship these cars overseas. So they maybe have to putting up more cash up front for international deliveries. It's sort of up in the air in my mind. And so I think we're going to get a lot of great clarity on that in the letter and the conference call. Full year delivery guidance or commentary. Any sort of hint on, I'm projecting deliveries of 420,000 cars in 2019. Are they going to give guidance on that? Are they going to give a hint about it? We'll see. Anything like that is going to be great. Additionally, any profitability guidance. Tesla and Elon has basically famously said that they want to run the company at break even or slightly profitable from here on out. And it looks like they've done it for 2 quarters in a row. Will they be able to continue that? I'm going to be looking for that as well. And then the last thing is an update on Tesla Energy, the solar roof. Like I said, these have sort of gotten lost, on the back burner. Nobody seems to be paying attention to the solar roof. It's been 3 years since it was unveiled. And it's barely ramped. So I think there's a ton of questions here. I think Tesla's energy business actually tremendously exciting. There was sort of a bummer because they had a huge project with PG&E in the works, 1.1 gigawatt hours, but that apparently may be canceled, or I don't know what's up with that because PG&E is now filing for bankruptcy. So anyway, that business is super exciting long term, but in a sort of state of flux. So I'd be curious to get an update on that as well. So that is what I'm looking for on the conference call. In the earnings report, I think Tesla is going to report its second profit in a row, which is huge. For those of you who've been following the channel, you remember, how much the short sellers and the skeptics were hounding on Tesla. Well, they don't make money. They're not profitable. They're not a real company. Tesla can never make money. Look at how many hundreds of millions they're losing. Tesla's lost $8 million since you started reading this article. Now, fast forward a year later, when all those crazy claims by Elon Musk that they would be profitable in the second half of the year, they've came true. It looks like Tesla is about to report its second GAAP profit in a row and second quarter of positive cash flow. I mean, this is huge. This is the transformation in the business that everybody was waiting for, that none of the bears believed was going to happen. The stock is actually lower than it was a year or two ago when this was all a pipe dream. And now we're here. Now the Model 3's ramped. Now it is profitable. Now Tesla does have the flexibility and money to do what it wants and invest in exciting things like the Semi and the Model Y. The factory in China is scheduled to come on in 2019. I think my personal opinion is I've never been more bullish on Tesla. I think the company has never been more valuable from a fundamental earnings power perspective and just inherent value as an asset. And I think it's all going to come to a moment of realization. This is my just gut feeling on this conference call and this earnings release. And they're going to be like, look, we did it. We were profitable for 2 quarters in a row. We're probably going to be profitable for the full year of 2019. Tesla made it. And I think that's going to be the sentiment that really gets, that really shines through on the company conference call. So that's what I'm super excited for. Also, I just made a video about this website that I've been working on with Say, which is a platform, Reddit, Twitter hybrid for verified Tesla shareholders to submit questions for the earnings call. I still think there's like a 90 to 95% chance Tesla actually answers questions from this website, which is going to be so epic. I mean, they're crowdsourced. They're from you guys. In just a couple days, we've already had 140,000 shares, like 150 questions, $42 million worth of unique shares have already participated and signed up in just a couple days. So make sure to sign up, upvote your questions. It's only for US shareholders now, which is sort of a bummer, but we're working on expanding that for future quarters. And huge shout out to everybody who shared that or participated in our earnings call question already. Anyway, so this is HyperChange. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your guesses for Tesla's GAAP revenue and GAAP operating income for this coming quarter? I'm at 6.7 billion, 200 million. The closest guess, I will send you a HyperChange hat. If you guess in the comments or tweet at HyperChange, the closest person to get Tesla's GAAP revenue and GAAP operating income will get a free HyperChange hat. So make sure you put your guess in. Anyway, this is HyperChange. Huge shout out to our Patreon supporters, producers funding the channel. I'll see you guys next time.